Right, it's Project Natter, and joining me today is Suzanne Brogan. Has a very interesting story to tell, all to do with stalking. Suzanne, welcome to the show. Welcome to Project Natter. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Thanks for having me, David. My name is Suzanne Brogan. I'm a 53-year-old female, married to Paul, living in Kettering in Northamptonshire. 9 years ago, I rather naively thought that if I needed the British judiciary, it would be there for me. How wrong I was. In 2013, I became the victim or survivor, whichever way you want to look at it. I think of myself as a survivor of my former chairman, Christopher Mark Stanton of Market Harborough. He was the chairman of a company called Welcome Communications Limited. We got on really well. There were two camps within the business. There was Camp Chris and Camp Aidan, who was the managing director. In 2012, I'd put a grievance in against Mr. Piper's behaviour to me and others. I was sales manager of the company. I had a team of, I think I'm right in saying 28 salespeople and 9 admin staff. I worked very hard. I went above and beyond. I was first in the morning, last out at night. Aidan was a bully. Aidan still is a bully. But Chris was very kind to me. I looked after his dog sometimes when he went on holiday. I loved his wife. I loved his children. I would never class myself as a friend of Chris or Chris a friend of mine, but I respected him as my employer. All that changed in 2013. When I started there in 2008, I did so on the proviso that I never had to report into Aidan Piper. He's a bit of a joke within the telecoms industry. He's known to be a bully. So the operations manager left, and I was told by Chris I had to report directly into him. Now, I'm a feisty bugger, and I'm more than capable of standing up for myself. So in sales meetings, when Aidan would call me thick and shit, and that was his nickname for me, I'd go back at him and say, yeah, you're probably right, Aidan, but I can read a book and learn. You're always going to be an ugly. But I got told off in the end and told that I wasn't allowed to defend myself. So that meant I had no voice. I had no opportunity to stick up for myself or my team. In May of 2013, we went to an awards ceremony. Mr. Stanton tried it on with me that night, and I politely declined his advances. Whether that was the reason for what happened next, I don't know. But another gentleman within the business was accused of fraud and arrested when he returned to work after a stroke. He was later found not guilty. Well, actually, the CPS said they would have never brought the charges against him, I believe, if they had been given all the evidence. But I was a witness in that trial, a defence witness. I don't believe the financial controller could have possibly been responsible for that because of a number of reasons, checks and balances he put in place. I was asked if I was having an affair with Colin, and I was engaged to my lovely now husband, and it was just laughable. It was pathetic. We don't know what started Mr. Stanton on the course of conduct that is harassment, intimidation as Section 4 offence. It is stalking. It was malicious communication. It was witness intimidation. But he got away with 2 counts of criminal damage after he was convicted of painting "bitch" on my car, returning a month later and throwing red paint all over it.
Tell us a little bit about that. Sorry to stop you, because we looked up your story beforehand, and obviously this was in the national press, it was in the newspapers. And he was actually caught on CCTV, wasn't he? This is how you knew it was him. So just tell us about that. I
woke up in the early one morning, looked out of the window to see if it was snowing. It was December. It was just after Christmas. I think it was the 28th of December from memory. And I saw "bitch" painted on my car. Ran downstairs. I'd got white paint daubed all over my car. I phoned, and my husband's car, to be fair, although not to the same extent. I phoned the police. They told me to leave that on my car. They'd come and see me in my office, which they did, but it meant I had to drive to work with bitch painted on my car. I had people coming up to me in supermarkets saying, you're having enough, you must be having an affair, that's a revenge attack. But initially I thought it was probably kids. So I walked down the road to see if any other cars had been targeted, and that's when I realised, no, it was just mine and Paul's. Now, I'd had CCTV installed because I live in the middle of a town centre, and I'd had some problems in the past. When I first watched the CCTV footage back, I only had a very, very small screen and I couldn't really see anything. So the company came out, put it on my TV for me, and I was able to slow it down. And I realised, having sat outside his office for 5 years, I recognised his gait. Although he was disguised, I could recognise the placement of his feet. I even offered to have gait analysis done and pay for it, but he gave me about 2 seconds to compare, which just wasn't enough.
So he supplied you with like footage of him moving around and stuff. Is that
about 2 seconds, where he jumps from or moves from outside a van? Nobody would be able to get confirmed footage for that. I'd offered to, if I was wrong, apologise, make a public apology to him at the offices of Welcome Communications. Now, if I was innocent, I'd have provided as much CCTV imagery as was possible. And that kind of alerted me to the fact that it definitely was him. Other people who knew him well for over 30 years, somebody called Perry Chandler, he'd seen the CCTV. He instantly identified him. And so did others. His car was also caught on the ANPR cameras just before the criminal damage was done to my car. On both occasions, he drove a very distinctive black Range Rover with a cherished number plate that was caught on camera approximately 20 minutes, less than a mile away from my home.
So it was two times. So you had the first time you wrote bitch on the side of your car, and another time I see he threw red paint over. Was that right?
He threw red paint, yeah. It caused thousands of pounds worth of damage. It was a company car. You don't get attached too much to company cars, but you know, it was an inconvenience, and it was an inconvenience for my company as well. But he was very annoyed that I had reported hundreds of data protection breaches to the O2 network. He ended up spending, or the company ended up spending quite a lot of money on data protection training. Why he wanted to know who I was calling and texting. This was a private mobile phone. I never had a company phone with them. Why it was important for him to see that, I don't know.
So he was actually checking your calls. He was checking your register on your phone. And how was he doing that?
There's with the O2, what we're called Centre of Excellence Partners, there's a dealer code or a rev share code. And when you sign a new customer up, they go onto that dealer's rev share code. When that customer leaves, the new code should go onto the account that would prevent them accessing it. They have access to something called My O2 Business, and it gives them every single dealer, every single customer, they have visibility of their bill. And we needed that. We did regular tariff reviews for our customers, but obviously we did it with their permission. If a customer contacted me as a sales manager, they got a problem with a member of staff, could I log on to their account and see what was the last number this user had dialed? I was able to tell them. And it was designed for good. It was to make sure they were connected to the correct tariff for their use. It wasn't designed to access people's mobile phone or landlines or data willy-nilly just to satisfy our own curiosity. I mean, we had famous people on our books. We had solicitors, we had accountants, we had people who would give them monkeys about their data. But when I had a brilliant police officer called PC Malcolm Roberts of Market Harborough Police, he applied for a court order because O2 would not supply the information willingly. He applied for a court order, got the court order, proved the data protection breaches, question Mr. Stanton. I got threatening text messages and emails from Stanton the day he was being questioned, threatening to expose the true nature of my relationship with him to my fiance. We had no relationship other than employer-employee, and friendly at a point. Now, when they had Colin arrested, I went on holiday. They gave us a letter to say that we weren't allowed to have any contact with Colin. I made it very clear that Colin would contact me. He was my mentor and massively supportive while he was working there. I went on holiday the following day, and lo and behold, a day or two into the holiday, I got a phone call in the evening. It was Colin saying that he was going to prove his innocence to me. They claimed that he had made up the fact that he'd had a stroke and that he'd falsified not medical records, sick notes, which turned out not to be true. I went on holiday again in the October, and Colin texted me when I was at the airport waiting to come home. He wanted Paul's number. My husband was then a recruiter. And I just texted him back and said, Paul will contact you tomorrow. When I went back to work, we went straight into contract negotiations. We'd acquired another company, and the sales manager for that company was earning considerably more than me. And they questioned my loyalty, which surprised me. As I say, I went in early every morning, every night, and it actually upset me. So I went to my boss, her office, and said, I just don't understand how you can question my loyalty. I work evenings, I work weekends, I work bank holidays, I do everything for everybody. I even go and buy the milk before bloody work. And one of the other directors, who's now left the company, but an absolute cow, called Rachel Williamson, she asked if Colin had been in touch with me. And I'd forgotten all about, although the call only happened, or text only happened on Monday, I'd forgotten about it. It was irrelevant to me. And I said, oh yeah, Colin contacted me on Monday. He wanted Paul's contact number. I messaged him back to say, Paul, why would Paul want to contact him? I said, Paul's a recruiter. He'd sell his own grandma. And then they took me through a fake disciplinary, and they terminated my employment on, I believe I'm right in saying, 24th of October 2013. We went into settlement agreement negotiations because obviously it was unfair dismissal, and on the day of the tribunal we settled for £33,500. I wouldn't agree to any of the ridiculous requirements of the settlement agreement, so our settlement agreement ended up being a handwritten A4 piece of paper. I agreed not to slag them off on social media. They did the same, and we would not discuss the amount of money that I had agreed to, which was all fine. Thought that was the end of it. No, I was wrong. I was then awarded a contract from one of their prior customers, and Stanton contacted the client, asked for a meeting, went into basically slag me off. My customer said, is this anything to do with Suzanne's ability to look after our account? Chris concluded or conceded that it wasn't, and the customer come with me anyway. At the same time, a journalist called James Pearce from the Mobile News magazine at the time, he's no longer there, wrote an article about the police's use of accessing people's data. I messaged him, I've known James for a while, and said, although your interview is interesting, it's not factually correct. The police have to get the permission of their superior before they're allowed to access anybody's mobile phone records. O2 Centre of Excellence partners that without any of the scrutiny or security. He asked for a statement. I went to Perry Chandler's office with Perry and his wife Jo present, just to confirm everything I was saying was true, because they were a sub-dealer of ours at the time, and gave a statement. James then contacted Wellcome Communications to say, have you got a comment? I understand you've been under police investigation, blah, blah, blah. He'd spoken to the marketing manager, I believe, Emily Murray, Chris Stanton phoned him up and asked if it was a woman that had broken the story. Not was it male or female? Was it a woman? James obviously wouldn't reveal his source, but Chris threatened to sue the publication if they proceeded with the story. Then, yeah, I won the business away from them around the same time. And then on the 28th of December was the first time I got my car painted. The following day, I got a text message saying, revenge is sweet with patience, time to strike back. That's it. Watch your back, lady, I'm coming for you. He didn't ask if it was a woman, he asked if it was a lady. Sorry, I got the wording of that wrong. Watch your back, lady, I'm coming for you. A couple of days later, I got another one saying, I've seen your face already, I'll probably leave that alone. I can't remember the rest of it. It was threatening or menacing anyway. Then I got one saying, don't even think about going to the old Bill. They won't know who I am or who I work for. This was all from a burner phone, by the way. Then Paul and I went on our honeymoon. The day we come back, I got another text message from the same number saying, still watching, still waiting.
What was that like? So what was that like? You're receiving these threatening text messages. You've had your car, vandalised. What was that like for you? Do you feel did you get paranoid? Did it cause strain on your relationship?
I was terrified. My husband's ex-military. He always wanted to go and speak to Mr. Stanton. I was worried it wouldn't end up in obviously. Oh, sorry, getting a low battery. And so it did cause a few problems. I used to say to Paul, if you go and speak to him, it won't end up as a conversation. It will end up as a fight. And then if you get arrested, who's going to protect me? I'll be on my own. We don't have children, don't have sons to look after me or any of those things. And it did cause a few problems between us because, of course, Paul wanted to protect me. That's what you do, isn't it? You protect your loved ones. And I was asking him not to. Sorry, I've just had to put my battery on.
What about on the paranoia side? I mean, if I had a bit of beef and someone's done me car on a couple of occasions and got messages, do you find yourself being extra vigilant?
Yes, I'm hyper vigilant even now. Even now when I go out, this is why one of the reasons I hate the masks, because I want to see people's face. And I don't think people realise, I mean, I'm not the victim of rape, but I've counselled victims of rape and domestic violence. They very often have something held over their nose and mouth to stop them from screaming out. And when you're being barked at in a doctor's surgery because you can't wear a mask and you're exempt, or being barked at by police, they don't know what you've been through in the past and what you're going through in the present. So I don't want people to feel sorry for me. My life is different, but I still have a life, and a lot of people in my position don't. And I'll always be grateful for that. I learned self-defense. I learned how to run. And I did boot camp to increase my strength. What I didn't do was learn how to relax, and that became a real problem. I was diagnosed in 2018 with PTSD, and I did a years-long meditation classes to learn to relax. Sometimes I can do it, sometimes I can't, depends how busy your mind is. I'm struggling with sleep at the minute. Insomnia is a problem, but I have got other things going on in my life that you know about. But yes, so I think the story mainly is about how the British judiciary let people down. He got charged with criminal damage. That was easy. Millionaire businessman lied throughout the court appearance at the end of.
This is after two years. Is that right? It took 2 years for them to convict him. Is that right?
We stood trial initially in 2017. He then appealed, used the courts to continue the harassment, intimidation, because nobody likes to give evidence in court. And then at the last minute dropped the appeal. In the meantime, the managing director had made a false allegation against me to Northamptonshire Police. He made false allegations to me about to Northamptonshire Police. And it's just there. They do this to ramp up, as I say, the fear, the harassment, the intimidation, and it's a common MO. Unfortunately, I've become a bit of a victim, expert on stalking, domestic abuse and cohesive control. Many, many, many people do this. And although in my book I make the point that you don't have to be young, you don't have to be a celebrity, you don't have to be rich to become the victim of a stalker. You never know when you could attract the eye of one. You know, they become obsessive, their behaviour is obsessive. I got diagnosed with PTSD, but the psychiatrist actually said, I'm interviewing the wrong person. And I said, what do you mean? Am I mad, bad or sad? He said, no. He said, but I think if I got Mr. Stanton in front of me, I might diagnose him as psychotic, psychopathic, sociopathic, probably schizophrenic, but certainly with narcissistic tendencies, whereas you're just scared. Which was like quite you know, but when you're dealing with people like this, there is no reasoning with them. I mean, he telephoned me on the 2nd of March last year. I got a couple of missed calls, didn't recognise the number, and when I phoned back, it was him. Instantly, my tummy turned to jelly. I felt sick. I put the phone down. He said it was a mistake, and I haven't heard from him since, so it may well have been. But I would have. People ask why I don't block his number, because I want to know if he rings me. I want to know if he texts me. I want to know if he's parked outside my house. So we increased the security on our home. We've now got cameras of CCTV. We've got panic buttons. I've got a big screen by my front door so I can see who's outside before I leave the house. I carry a pen just like that everywhere with me. It's a very good little weapon if you need it. And as I say, I'm grateful that I have got my life, but it has changed. And I've changed. You know, I used to let a lot more go and be very forgiving. I'm not now. It's one strike and you're out.
Do you think it's made you a stronger person?
At times, yes, for sure. Don't feel it in the wee small hours when I'm not sleeping, and you know, all the worries from everything, from COVID to whatever's else going on in the world. I worry about everything now, whereas I didn't used to. But as I say, I'm still here. I'm still standing. My reputation is fine. You know, I have had a couple of people saying, "Why did you do that to Chris Stanton? What do you perceive I did to him?" Or you spoke to the press. Well, yeah, I did. But I also spoke to solicitors and charities before I did that to see what was the best thing to do. And I was advised the more people who knows what he looks like, the safer you become. But yes, it did destroy his reputation. That was not my intention. I just wanted to stay alive. The fact that he's become a bit of a hermit now, oh well, there you go. That's a shame. I was a hermit for a long time. I didn't want to leave my house. Even if I was going out with girlfriends, they'd come and pick me up and walk either side of me. Everybody knew what he looked like. And
so you've taken a negative and turned it into a positive, because you're doing a lot of awareness, you know, on this subject. Your book.
Having me on. Yes, so my book, I've pulled it from sale at the minute because my story does change quite often, and I haven't got time to rewrite it, but I will. I've started blogging and just getting what stalking can look like, what the red flags can be. I've also been asked to do some guest speaking about bullying in the workplace. I've appeared on several television programmes, one of them for only a few seconds. It was called Lights, Camera, Action, and the episode was about workplace bullying that goes too far. They were with me for 8 hours that day. And then I think I appeared for about 4 seconds, no context whatsoever. But,
always the way.
at least people are interested in the story. And so Northamptonshire Police went to arrest him. They sent 5 officers to arrest him. Solicitors quoted, when they got there, he was on holiday, knowing that the managing director would have notified him. I feared for my life. I contacted solicitors. They were quoting me £20,000 just to represent me. So I represented myself for a court fee of £280 and a day waiting for a judge to be available. The judges are very sympathetic in these cases, and I was awarded the injunction. I had him served on Mothering Sunday when he got back from the Dominican Republic. We went back to court. He had very, very wealthy man. I made him some of that money. That always annoys me, but never mind. It is what it is. He had solicitors, and I think he had a barrister there as well. He'd employed a top firm of Northampton solicitors. And the judge asked him to give the court an undertaking. Now, I didn't understand what an undertaking was. I didn't realise at the time it has the same power of arrest as an injunction. I jumped up and said, "No, Your Honour, I want an injunction." The judge very kindly explained that it's exactly the same thing. He won't be allowed to come near my home. He won't be allowed to come near my workplace, blah, blah, blah. And so basically, I beat his legal team because he still was prevented from doing anything. And the funny thing was, and this does make me laugh, David, when I asked the judge if I could leave the court first, get back to my car before Mr. Stanton was allowed to leave. When I was walking back through the car park, a car park attendant was putting a ticket on his car. I always make me laugh. I took photos. I thought that was absolutely brilliant. So although this man's a millionaire, he can't even put enough fees in the machine to cover his parking. So there's a lot of good things that have come out of this. I'm a little bit more wary of people, but that's proven to be a good thing. As I say, PTSD, some of the symptoms of that is insomnia, can be hypervigilance, can be anxiety, can be depression, although I'm not depressed at the minute. I just think if I can help one person go through what I've been through, well, then my next door neighbour, bless her, she passed away last year, but she once said to me, "Why do all these bad things happen to you, Suzanne?" And I said, she was very religious. And I said, "It's because your man upstairs knows that I can cope with it. A lot of people wouldn't." And I do believe that. And yes, I'd like a period of downtime where I'm not being attacked by some idiot, but I do cope. It's not without its detriment to my health, but hey, I feel 107 some days, and I feel wise beyond my years. But I've learned how to live with it without it. It doesn't affect Paul and I anymore, which is the main thing, and it hasn't done for a long time. If anything, it's made us stronger.
You referred to it before as Murder by Slow Motion. Was that the title of your book as well, was it? Or?
Yeah. So murder in slow motion is the term used for either domestic violence or stalking, because that's what it feels like. You're forever waiting for it to happen. You just don't know if and when it will. Making vague threats, revenge is sweet with patience. At 2 o'clock in the morning, that could mean anything. I didn't know. I expected some sort of physical retribution. I'd seen him breaking his own son's nose at a Christmas party when he was drunk, and then jumping in his Range Rover and driving home. Things like that. So I knew he has a tendency to violence. And you just don't know what's going to happen, and whether he knew. Couldn't remember if he knew any of my fears and whether they would be realised. I suddenly, for the first time in my life, understood why. When you see newspaper headlines that 12-year-olds have taken their own life because of bullying at school, I didn't get it, because I always used to think, I was bullied a bit at school, nothing serious, and I think you get through it, it ends. You become the bully. You bully back. That's the best way to deal with bullies. And for a short period of time, I did understand, because the fear that you go through is greater than anything else that you experience. I was lucky. I was able to keep busy. I know some people who, I mean, police came in here. I've lived in my house now 28 years, so I suppose at the time it was about 24, and they advised me to sell up and move. I hadn't done anything wrong. Why should I? Why should I change the way I live and where I live? I love my home. Yes, I've made it more secure. But the advice given by the police is very often wrong. I sent some scathing emails to our former Chief Constable, Simon Edens. He totally ignored me. So I doorstepped him. He was judging the competition in Kettering. I turned up at the competition, waited outside for him. And when he walked towards me, I went, "Are you Simon?" He said, he's very Irish. I can't do the accent, won't even try. He said, "Who are you?" I said, "I'm Suzanne Brogan, and you ignore my emails." And he said, "Well, what can I do?" And I said, "Look, I'm here so you can see my face." And he said, "Why?" I said, "Because if I get acid in it or anything happens to me, I'm holding you directly responsible. I've made you aware right from the start. You know, your PC or your DC goes on rest days. They should have, and they have got a system that anybody could go onto that system and see where the investigation's at. But they never tell you that. They tell you that they're being contacted at the end of their rest days. The CPS were next to useless. At the time, I thought they were great. Did inquire why they hadn't charged him with stalking. I was told they were outside of the statute of limitation. If they'd actually charged him with harassment, intimidation as a Section 4 offence, that would have given me a 10-year statute of limitation, not the 6 months they gave me. So they let me down at every stage. The only people who didn't was PC Malcolm Roberts. There was another PC, can't remember his name, who said it was too complex for him and walked away from it, which I appreciated at the time. Yeah, that was about it.
Where can people find you, Susan? What's your socials? Where are you on? You're on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube?
I'm on Facebook. I've got a very small YouTube channel called My Way, a Survivor's Guide to Twits and Twats and Fecking Idiots. And Twats is TW, ampersand TS, and Fecking FECKING. I'm on Twitter as MISM_2020. No, 2022. I got nuked, didn't I? 2020 got nuked recently. So I'm building up my followers. I am on LinkedIn as Suzanne Brogan. And I was contacted by the media outlet that sold my story to the press. They had another example of a former boss doing something similar to a lady, and they asked if they could put her in touch with me because she was going through some of the things, so how to get an injunction and things like that. The things you can do to help yourself, you shouldn't have to, but at the end of the day, the police don't know the law. And
do you mind if people going through similar experiences can contact you through your social media? Is that all right?
Have no issue with that whatsoever. Yeah. Have no issue. I'm very, very private on my Facebook page, but if they contact me via Twitter or LinkedIn, that would probably be the easiest. So it's Suzanne Brogan, and I have a company called Brogan & Co. Strangely, I work for myself now because I'm fed up of working for twits. Yeah, I'm more than happy to help people.
Lovely. Okay, what we'll do, we'll post some links below the video, so you can get in touch with Susan if you wish to. Thanks very much for your time. Really appreciate you sharing your story with us. Very interesting. And yeah, send some links.
Can you send me a link? Can you send me a link to this so I can post it on our website, Stalking?
Yes, we will do, definitely. 100%.
Lovely. David,
thanks again for your time.
So much for your time. Take care, love. Bye-bye.
Bye.